Hey, what's up everyone? Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids, out in the desert of Nevada today, and what my wife and I are going to be doing is playing out a scenario of two hikers who get lost when they're out hiking. Now to do that, what we're going to do is look at my updated version of the ESEE survival kit. So a handful of months ago I looked at their escape and evasion kit. We talked about the items in it, and we talked about them in relation to escape and evasion, and then I said what I'm going to do is swap out some of those items and make a wallet-sized kit that I would use as a last-ditch survival kit. So what we'll do is we'll look at the kit, we'll look at the Izula, and then we'll basically set up a base camp to say, hey, if we got lost and we had to spend the night, what would base camp look like and how would we use the kit and the knife to basically stay alive so the next day we could effect self-rescue. So let's talk through the kit here. So the first thing I want to show you is I put a velcro loop around it, basically just to keep it more compact. When you put all the gear in it, it can start to expand out, and this keeps it a little bit more just consolidated. So take this off and you can see on the back I've got a piece of reflective 3M tape, and that's in case I drop it, I've got at least a little bit more of a chance to find it again. And I do have a squeeze light that I put here on the outside. Now the items on the outside, you could just roll them and put them on the inside, but I just kind of left them hanging out for now. But if I had this in my pocket and then I drop this, okay, now I can at least squeeze this and look for a reflection to actually spot the survival kit. So you can see the other thing I have here that's hanging on the outside is the fire steel. Now that was included with the ESEE kit. It's a fire steel and some magnesium. So let me open this up and I'll take the elastic strap off there. So now you see it's opened up. I've got a bunch of things in here that for me would be more effective than an escape and evasion kit, because escape and evasion is not the same thing as survival. And so I've built this around what my needs would be. So a couple things. First, as you can see, I've also kept this cordage that came with the escape and evasion kit. Great to have it. It's very strong. I think it's actually Kevlar cordage. So that's a great thing, just to have good solid cordage with you, and it's already all rolled up and everything. I also have a whistle that I added. Obviously a great signaling tool, so if you got lost and you wanted to get some attention, you know, 3 whistles, you can do SOS, whatever it is. But if you hear a strange sound like that out in the woods, you might think, okay, yeah, somebody's trying to get my attention, so that's why I have that included. I also have this little reflective, it's when this gets lit up by the sun, it absorbs light and gives you a tiny bit of light to look around, maybe, you know, look something up close, but more particularly, it stands out if somebody sees something glowing as they're going through the desert looking for you at night. And on the other side, you can see I've got a mirror, so that's going to get somebody's attention if I want to signal and, yeah, just let somebody know I'm out here. Next thing you can see is I have a plastic bag. This is a lock sack bag, and the key, or the reason I included this, is because I wanted to have something that I could collect water in. Now you're in the desert, so that's going to be a challenge, but we're going to show you how we would do that here in this scenario. It's got a very nice seal, so you can carry some water around with you. If you had to move, now you've got a way to transport water. Okay, this next thing is a big deal for me. It's another way to start fire. So in New Hampshire, where I'm from, if I'm lost in the woods, if I'm in a scenario where I'm going to be in the woods, say overnight, or the desert here overnight, it can get really cold. I definitely want a fire. So fire steel, great, but now I've got UCO fireproof matches, I've got some quick tinder, and I've got some fire starting material from Fire Starter Specialist Production Hanger 51. They originally made the fat rope stick. This is just kind of a more compact version of it. You can see I've got the striker on the back to get that fire started, but for me, any outdoor scenario where I'm going to be staying overnight, fire is definitely going to be a high priority. In the escape and evasion kit, it came with this little arrowhead, which I just kept. It's very small, very compact. Gives me a small cutting tool. Now I mentioned I already have the ESEE Izula, which you'll see in a minute, but another thing, I could strike my ferro rod with that. Just good to have something sharp when you're out in the woods, so I kept that in the kit since it's so small and lightweight. A couple other small items, we have a button compass and a little ceramic rod which you can use to scrape, to cut. Obviously not doing a lot of cutting, but particularly I'm thinking about striking the ferro rod. And this is a good compass. Some of the button compasses, or a lot of the button compasses, are just garbage. This one actually really works, so good to have those two little items. Now in addition to the water bag, you can see I've got 5 water purification tablets, so that'll help me not just collect the water, but also purify it, take care of things like Giardia or cryptosporidium. So that's nice to have as well. And And then down here in this bottom section, I've got some more of the 3M reflective tape, which again, if someone's out there at night looking for me and they see that, that could catch their attention. That's very small, very compact. And it's also a form of tape. It's very, it's lightweight, but it's got, you know, a sticky substance on the back, so I could use that for various things. I do have a very thin ESEE survival card. It's got some survival information on the back. I have, this is a fishing kit. Now you're gonna say, in the desert, how is that helpful? Well, there are streams in this desert actually right where we're near, so that would be an item we might want to use. You could swap that out for other survival cards. And then from Grim Workshop, which that one's from, and then this one as well, you've got a little arrowhead, you got a little saw, you've got kind of a larger, maybe for a spear, just a sharper edge. And then here, inside this, this is from ESEE as well, we also have basically dental floss, so you could use that for, again, additional cordage. So here's a quick look at all the gear laid out for you. It is pretty impressive that while it's got enough little pockets and ways to organize things, that you can store quite a bit in a wallet-sized survival kit. Now again, this is not the ultimate survival kit. I would say one addition I would love to make if it would fit would be a Mylar blanket, just for added warmth, a little bit of shelter. But I just couldn't find a way to put it into this kit without it just being like, you know, just totally swollen. And at that point, it's not really a wallet survival kit because it's overflowing. But I will show you now how we'll use some of these items to basically set up camp and, you know, be in this scenario that if we had to spend the night, I think we'd be okay to make it through. So the other item I brought in this scenario is the ESEE Izula, and you can see I got the one with the blaze orange handles, which is good because obviously if you drop a knife out here, it's going to be easier to find. I just shot a video considering the ESEE 6 in Venom Green with the blaze orange handles and compared that to the regular ESEE 6 just to talk about, you know, is it that much different? Can you find it that much more easily in the woods? And it is a notable difference. So, you know, a knife with a bright orange handle is going to be easier to see than something that's all black. So just a heads up about that. It comes in this pretty high grade plastic sheath. It's got a clip on the back. You can set it up for a net carry, but this is just going to be on my hip. So normally if you go hiking, you're going to bring a backpack, you're going to have food, you're going to have water, maybe a tarp, you're going to have some sort of system so that if you did get lost or got injured, you could spend the night. But again, we're playing out this scenario as an unprepared couple who went out into the desert for, you know, a quick hike and found themselves in a bad situation. So I'm going to introduce you to my wife real quick, and then she's going to share with you a little bit about her observations of being out here in the desert of Nevada. So this is my wife, Jenny. Gentlemen, as you can see, I definitely married up, and she's going to just share a little bit about her experience back on the East Coast and then how that compares to the desert of Nevada.
So I have spent a fair amount of time hiking and backpacking in the Northeast, particularly where we live in New Hampshire. And one of the things that I found a little bit amusing when we were coming out here to Nevada was that all of my friends back home said something to the effect of, oh, you're going to Nevada and it's going to be warm and you're going to get to go to the pool and sunbathe. And I have been to Nevada before in the winter months, so I knew just from past experience that the desert in January is completely different as far as the climate than the desert in July or August. And so I think that's something that strikes me being out here today, where it's about 40 degrees and we got out of the car, and obviously we knew we were playing out this scenario of being kind of lost out here and really unprepared. But if this was that situation in reality, I would have been much more shocked about how cold it is out here in January and how much more I wish I was wearing, even if we were going to take a short walk. So that's just some of my thoughts about the climate here in January in the desert. It's really a misperception that I think a lot of people have, that the desert in the winter is hot and that you're going to be totally fine walking out in like a short sleeve shirt or shorts, and that's not the case in January in Nevada. And our current elevation is 6,000 feet.
Yeah,
that's
we're at
another
6,000
thing to take into consideration when you're thinking about the climate.
All right, let's start playing out the scenario of what we would do if it was time to start setting up camp. First thing we'll do is find a shelter area. And so when you're doing that, you don't want to be out totally in the open. Yeah, it's easier to see someone or someone to see you, but you're totally exposed to the elements. And so what we have here is kind of a cluster of trees, which we could stay there for the night and have a little bit more safety around us, as well as getting heat from one another and also from hot rocks if we bring them into the shelter area. But right where I'm standing now is open, so you could come out and wave and signal if you had to get somebody's attention. So we'll make the fire out in this area and then basically shelter back in that area.
Tim is going to work on the shelter now, and so while he's doing that, I'm going to be collecting snow for our drinking water. And snow is actually 90% air and 10% water. So I'm going to collect some now, and that's something that we're going to have to continue to do as we need to replenish our drinking water supply while we're out here in the desert.
So we've got some very primitive walls built in the location we would spend the night. Because there's lots of cracks in the walls, we'd want to put something that's a little bushier and it's got a little more volume around it to break some of the wind. And so you can take some of these juniper trees, get some of the branches. As you can see, there's lots of green on them. So with the ESEE Izula, I don't want to take a lot down, but just to show you what it would look like. You know, if you just took a little section of it here by doing the beaver chew method, which is just kind of slicing away at the tree. But you can see pretty quickly I can get through this. You know, and if I got a ton of these and I can lean them up against the shelter wall, that would keep the wind from coming in. This is not comfortable to lay on, even though it would get you up off the ground a little bit. It's pretty uncomfortable, so I would look for something else. Worst case scenario, you could use it. But this, again, lean it up against the outside of the walls. So here we are in the survival shelter, and so you can imagine Jenny and me just kind of huddled together to exchange body heat through the night, you know, just to stay warm, bringing some hot rocks in here that we take from the fire to keep our body temperature up. We are under a lot of like junipers and pinyon pines, and so the ground is actually, it's a little bit damp, but it's pretty soft, so you could maybe get a couple hours of sleep on and off through the night. So that's a basic look at the shelter, and now we're going to look at getting a fire started because, again, heat is going to be a major issue for us when the cold night comes.
So I realize it's January in the desert here in Nevada, and there's probably fewer hazards when it comes to snakes and scorpions and things that would be otherwise a thing you'd really need to consider if you were stuck out here in July or August or any of the warmer months. But you want to be thoughtful about how you're picking up some of the things that you're going to use to, say, build the walls around your fire, or to build up your temporary survival structure, or to get firewood for the fire that you're going to build. So I was sort of kicking rocks up rather than reaching down with my hand and picking them up. And one of the rocks that I kicked, I reached down because I had loosened it and I knew it was fine to grab it. But I didn't see in sort of the shade of this bush right here, which is totally fine to touch, is a cactus that's growing right there. And I poked my finger on the cactus, which thankfully I'm totally fine. But at the exact same moment as I was doing that, Tim was over collecting firewood out there, and he had the exact same moment where he, you know, reached down for something and something snagged him. So it's just important to be thoughtful about your surroundings, and even just to, before you come out for a hike, even if it's short, to maybe just get a little more prepared about what you might see as far as wildlife or what the surrounding plant life is like, and to keep that in mind as you hike, whether or not you're going to end up in a situation where you're in trouble.
As you can see, I've built up basically 3/4 of a circle for the fire pit. We want to reflect heat back to ourselves. So it's not meant to be the perfect thing, it's just meant to get the job done so we could keep a fire contained and also get some heat back at us as we're trying to stay warm. We're going to start our fire now. I want to say real quick, fire stills are fun to use. They're great in wet weather, but in a survival situation, the goal is get the fire, not just let's have fun doing it. So I'm going to use one of the matches. I'm going to use some of the material from Production Hanger 51 that's just impregnated with wax and other things that are really flammable, and we're going to get the fire going. And then I'll additionally show you how to use the fire steel that's in the kit. going, but just to show you there are other ways you could get the fire started using a fire steel. We've got some fluffed up juniper bark, and then we have the fat rope stick material. It's just impregnated with great things that they're basically water resistant, and they also catch really quickly with a spark. And then last we have the Tinder Quick. So once the juniper gets going, especially with this little breeze, it'll burn really nicely. So these other two materials are man-made, but just want to show you that you can use some of the natural materials out here. So let's hit this material from Production Hanger 51. So that's starting to burn nicely. And now our last one over here, let me just move it out of the way a little bit. And now that's burning as well. The other thing about this fire steel is the back is magnesium. So magnesium is going to get a very, very hot flame, but it's going to go out quickly. So you want something to put on top of it as soon as it sparks up. But you'll see it actually burns white hot. Hey guys, as we hit the final stretch of this video, just one quick comment for you. As you can see, we're not using all of the items from this survival kit in this scenario. So my plan is to do another additional video in a different environment in New Hampshire and in a different season in the spring to test out this kit even more and to use some of the items that weren't used in this scenario in that scenario. So stay tuned for that in a future video. So let's talk about signaling real quick. When you're setting up your shelter, getting your fire going, don't lose sight of the fact that the goal is to get out of here. And so leverage the opportunities to, if you got the whistle, blow the whistle every once in a while. If you want to use the mirror, you can use that to reflect some light off in the distance. If you see somebody or see something, don't get so in the zone about survival that you forget the goal is to actually get out of here. So as you can see, the snow has melted significantly. We had a full bag and now it's down to, less than half, I would say, if you really kind of shook it down. So snow is gonna melt, you're gonna refill it, you're gonna get more snow, it'll melt again. I don't generally think about purifying snow. I mean, if you see like there's something gross on it, I wouldn't eat it, but snow, unless somebody has put some sort of pollutant on it, like animal waste or something else, it's gonna be generally good to consume. One thing about snow is people say, well, don't consume it because it's really cold, it's gonna lower your core body temperature. That's true, but if you're active and you're doing things, little sips to keep you maintained along the way is good. Best scenario is melt the snow, it's water, maybe warm it up a little bit and then consume it. We could put this by the fire to help it melt a little bit. And yeah, it's a water source. So just to show you that you can actually drink it. Desert snow, water for survival.
So this has been really fun. Thank you guys for welcoming me into the ETV community for the day.
Yeah, it's been great to have Jenny, and you can see 2 people in a survival scenario is so much better. You got people you can talk to, if I'm freaking out, she can calm me down and vice versa, and then many hands make quick work. So, a couple final thoughts here. We're in our survival shelter. It's not long term, it's a windbreak to get through the night. We'd heat up some rocks at the fire, bring it back over here. We'd have to pile up a lot of firewood to keep that fire going through the night. And then, we want to be ready to signal in case we hear somebody to get their attention. So that's the whistle, that's yelling, that's waving, whatever it might be. So yeah, thanks for watching the video. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments about changes or additions you'd make to this kit that I changed up from the original ESEE Escape and Evasion kit. So go ahead and leave some comments in the comment section and let us know about that. Thanks as always for watching the videos here on YouTube from Everyday Tactical Vids. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check us out on Instagram, Tumblr, and Vero as well. More videos coming soon. Take care.